Hello, it's Wednesday all around the world, 6 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning in America, 11 a.m. in the UK and 8 p.m. in Australia. I'm having Hollie on tonight from Perception is Your Power. She'll be on in just a moment. And also we're going to be talking about addictive behaviours, which will be good to talk about. I'm sure there's quite a few people out there with some sort of addiction, and it doesn't have to be drugs or alcohol. If you haven't listened to the podcast, we're actually on a break now for 6 weeks. We'll be back in October, but there's plenty of stories there to hear on Life Changes You, which is on Apple and Spotify and everywhere else that you can download your podcast from. I'm now going to get Hollie in. You have no requests to join, wrong one. There we are. But we've spoken a lot on social media. So there she is. Hello, Hollie.
Hi.
How are you?
Hello. I'm good, thanks.
Hello.
Do you know what? I've not been nervous this morning, and I'm so shocked. I don't know why.
What, are you usually nervous before you do a live?
I've only done one. I've only ever done one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I did one with Leandra from LJ Coaching. Shout out to
Where
Leandra.
I saw you. Yes, because when we started talking, and then I thought, I know this person from somewhere. Where do I know them from? And I couldn't remember. But yeah, Leandra.
Yeah. So I was so nervous doing her live. So I almost anticipated that nerve-wracking feeling this morning. I'm actually okay. Not too bad.
Oh, well, that's
so
good. That's good. Well, there's nothing
How
to
are
be
you?
scared about. We're just going to have a good conversation. So I'm good. It's
Good.
8 o'clock here in Australia. It's a bit cold outside and rainy. What's it like there in the UK?
Same. Yeah, it's the same.
Cold and rainy.
Yeah, raining today. Yeah, but you know what though? It could go sunny in an hour. You just don't know at the moment. It's strange.
And you're
So
just getting
strange.
ready for school holidays, aren't you, over there?
Yeah, I'm not sure whether they're going on at the moment. My brother was in his last year, so I think he finished a little bit earlier. So I'm a little bit out of whack. I'm not too sure whether they're already started or they're about to start. But either way, it's meant to be the summer.
Okay, yeah. Well, look,
Yeah.
we're getting into spring in another week, which I can't wait for. So it gets a bit warmer.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Nice.
Well,
You're
look,
used to the nice weather then.
It'll be lovely weather then. I want to say hello to a few people who have joined us. You're the first one, but I don't need to say hello to you because you're here. And the Silent Epidemic is here. Lauren Hutchinson, Art, Journey to Fabulosity with Jay, Psych Cafe, KG Counselling, which is Karen, Psych Cafe. Good morning. She's in America, and that is Fran. Blackheart85XZY. Do you know them?
No, don't think so.
Not one of your followers, okay. And
No.
the Silent Epidemic says, hello, dear friends. So glad to be catching you live this morning. I think it's about 3 o'clock there. Now we've got Josh Tickle, Andy, Olivia, Reiki Love J, Voiceover Girl joined, and Claret1111. No,
Yes,
3
Claire.
ones.
She's my cousin. Hi, Claire.
Oh, okay. Hello, Claire. You're a cousin.
Yes,
So
she's in Scotland.
Scotland. Is it warmer up there? No, colder.
Probably not.
Yeah. So do you want to just give us a little bit of a background of what you do or what your psych, you've nearly finished your psych, or you have already finished your psych?
I've finished now. So I've got a Bachelor of Science degree with honours in psychology and counselling,
Wow.
And so I'm more clinical at the moment. I'm just finding my feet to finish my exams in June. So I have my ceremony and everything in November. So, you know, I'm just starting, which is like so rewarding for me to say, because you know when you're going through your degree and your studies and your exams and that, you really do think I'm not going to get there, and it's the thought of like being able to say to people, I've done it.
And that's about 6 years, isn't it? Study.
Yeah, 6 years. Yeah.
Wow.
I am gonna do my PhD and get that in the bag, but I'm just at the moment I need a bit more experience with people, and you know, although I do give friends kind of a little bit of therapy,
yeah,
I want to build a reputation around my name and stuff. So yeah, that's my plan for the next 6 months.
Well, look, that's good, because I think once you finish your studying, if you can get out there and do a bit of work and, you know, really formalize your studies into actually action, that makes a big difference, doesn't it?
Definitely, yeah, yeah. So I think I chose this topic today because I did my dissertation in a process behaviour. So, sorry, a process addiction or a behavioural addiction. I did my dissertation in exercise dependency. So it's kind of a topic that I've delved into because I've had to, but also because like I find it so interesting, and I think it's so relative to so many people. So yeah, I thought, you know what, like it's a good topic to discuss because when you
Oh,
hear people
definitely.
talking about addiction, a lot of people just think, oh, substance, alcohol, and with that, I think so many people are going through addictions without even really realizing.
There's a lot,
So
isn't there? I
it's
mean,
important.
I was just thinking today about how many things that we could say were addictive,
Yeah,
well, not personalities, addictive things that people become addicted to. And they're things
yeah,
like shopping, online
yeah,
shopping,
yeah,
their coffee, chocolate. There's so
yeah,
many addictive behaviors that we have, which I guess they're normalized. So we don't actually think
yeah,
of them as addictive until someone
yeah.
says, God, you drink a lot of coffee. And you go, oh, do I? I didn't think I
Exactly,
did.
yeah. And the problem is, it's so hard to distinguish. So people won't really, so say loved ones, if you have somebody who's addicted to a substance, for instance, it's a lot more visible. You can see it, you know, the person starts to look like they're deteriorating, and you know, it's obvious. Whereas with a behavioral addiction, they're actually called process addictions. And that's because you become addicted to the process. So rather than ingesting something, you're addicted to that feeling of the process that you're doing. But a lot of those processes, there's a fine line between being healthy and really unhealthy. And kind of getting that equilibrium can be really difficult.
Yeah.
And there's so many different reasons why people do create these process addictions, and you know, without even really realizing, you know, thinking that you're doing something really good for yourself, and for instance exercising or eating really really healthily and being restrictive with your food, to then become like a massive problem, and you're
Yeah.
thinking, whoa, how did I get here?
Yeah.
How did I get to this place? It's like social media. I think social media is one of the biggest ones. And the thing with social media is, so it tricks the brain, it tricks the reward system in the brain. So the brain automatically thinks, I'm getting a reward here. And then it doesn't get the reward. And that's why so many people are constantly picking the phone up, because they're desiring this reward. Their reward system in their brain's constantly activated. And they're not gaining the dopamine from the thing that they're trying to do. And it's just a never ending cycle. And we're all kind of, we've all got that problem, haven't we, with social media? I think anyone who's got it, like, you're picking up
We
your phone
do.
when you're stressed, aren't you? You're picking your phone up when you're bored. It's too easy.
Yeah. Look, I've just watched a couple of documentaries, British ones. I can't remember what they were called. One was about Instagram and how they hook you in and how they keep you going. And the
Mm.
other one was probably about a year ago, which was overall all social media. So Facebook, Twitter, and how they design all these little things to hook you in. And especially the little ellipsis, which is those three little dots that bounce when you're waiting for a message
Yeah,
to come back. And you watch it and you watch it and you think, oh, they're going to reply. And then all of a sudden they don't. And you're like, what happened? You know, but
creates a
they
thrill
created
in.
that to keep, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. There was a documentary on Netflix that I remember watching, and I remember it saying stuff like that. And I remember at the time, after I'd watched it, like regretting watching it, because whenever I was like in a position where I was consciously aware of those things that were drawing me in, I was getting frustrated because I was like, Holly, you have no control of that. Like, it's scary.
yeah.
And you
What?
learn that, when you're studying psychology anyway, you know, with like advertisements and things like stimuli that is there to draw you in. But like social media, because you're subconsciously, like, you're not conscious, are you, when you're looking at it? I don't think it's like
No,
system overloads, but you don't realize. And like, that's the problem, isn't it? You just don't realize you're being drawn in.
no. Look, I can spend about an hour at the end of the day replying to messages, responding to comments, and looking through
Mm.
other people's stuff. And then I look at the time and I go, shit, I've been here an hour, and I thought I'd been here
Yeah,
like 5 minutes.
And it's
Yeah.
just crazy how much we spend looking at, and the stories you read that you're not even interested in, but you go,
Yeah.
oh, actually, what does that say? And you read a whole story and you go, I'm not interested in that, but you stop to read it.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. And there's a thing with your brain when you're looking through social media, it does create this sensory overload, and that has a really negative impact on your motivation. So when your brain is overwhelmed, it decides to just shut off. So say you're going on your phone and you're looking at all these stories and all these accounts in your lunchtime, for instance, in work. 9 times out of 10 in the afternoon, you're going to be a lot less performative, which is
Right.
like, it affects your life, doesn't it? Because if you're not performing optimally, why? So you can scroll through your Instagram. It's awful, isn't it? Like, and you just don't realize it.
Yeah, and look, I
Don't
mean, really, you
realize.
should be having social interaction with a friend or family member or even your work colleagues while you're in the
Yeah.
lunchroom talking about your day or what you've been doing. I mean,
Yeah.
gone are the days, I mean, you're a lot younger than me, but we used to have what was called water cooler moments where you talk about what was on the TV the night before. I mean, nowadays, we don't even have just normal TV. We have like a billion different subscription things. So probably everybody's watching different stuff, but it used to be that, you know, you'd go in and you'd say, oh, did you watch so-and-so last night? And everyone would be, yeah, wasn't that great? Well, now everybody's just flicking through. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of the main things that I tell anybody who's suffering with addiction, that like one of the major problems and the root causes of it is a disconnection. And I think in today's society, and I think through the lockdown specifically, that disconnect really has had a massive impact on people's substance addictions and behavioural addictions, I think. Because it's like, if you can't connect to someone, you're connecting to something, which is so sad, isn't it?
Well, look, it is, but I must say, during lockdown, that's when Instagram ballooned for me. That's when my podcast ballooned for me because people were locked in and they were looking for things to do, looking for positive updates. So for me, it was good. But I can also see the negative of it as well. People, you know, I mean, I was just reading a report the other day about divorce, and I knew that divorce had skyrocketed through lockdown and separation. But the story was that there are now divorce coaches out there to support those people who are divorcing, so that they've got someone on their side to help them through. Which, is it good or is it bad? Do we need a divorce coach? I don't know.
I mean, maybe some people do. I'm not sure. I've always said I will never get married until I know that that person is the person. So I'm not sure. I've never been in that experience, but maybe it is good for people who need a divorce coach. You just don't know, do you? Are you married?
No, and look, am I? No, not anymore.
Yeah, no,
and probably I needed a divorce coach at the time.
There you go. There's everything.
No, I didn't. But like what you were just saying there, you're going to wait until you know the person is exactly the person you want to marry. That's what I did. I thought that was the person I wanted to marry for the rest of my life. And it doesn't work that way, you know, because people change. And I saw the biggest change 3 months after we were married. And it was like, wow, who's this person I've married? I don't know this person.
I read something once and it was like, you create this ideal person in your head and you really convince yourself that they're that person until you can't any longer. And unfortunately, you have to make those mistakes, don't you? And to then get into another situation to be a little bit more wary. But yeah, that must be hard, you know, getting married and that being the case.
I'll just read some comments. Also, for people, if you want to leave a comment for us, down in the right-hand corner at the bottom of the screen, there's a little speech bubble with a question mark in. If you want to write a question in there for myself or Holly, you can. Or if you just want to keep commenting. And I was speaking before about shopping addiction, and Reiki Love J said, "Are you speaking to me, Daniel?" So she might have a shopping addiction, I think. Is a shopping addiction a bad thing? Oh, hold on, we've got one more comment. And Blix Girl says the guy who got a water cooler at home. Actually, yeah, back in my younger days, in my 20s, I lived with Blix Girl and her partner, and we had a water cooler at the house. And
so
then
she knows.
KG Counselling, which I think you know too, Karen, she said, how can we stop looking at our phone Let's answer that before we go into the next questions.
Yeah. So the thing with like your mobile phone, I think one is to like set boundaries. So I have only recently set a time limiter on my phone, but it's about breaking the habit. So I'll just go into the biological side of things with habits. And you know, your basal ganglia at the back of your prefrontal cortex, that's the region of your brain that's kind of, it's responsible for like pleasurable effects from like healthy habits. So that's the region that is activated when we have sex, we go shopping, we socialize, we eat food. But when that system or that area is overwhelmed, so when we're compulsively doing something, it can't function. And with that, our habits and our routines, they're out of whack. So we lose control of them. And with that, what we have to do is we have to reprogram. So that's just about completely scratching all of our habits, becoming conscious of what we're doing and reprogramming them. So it's like, you know, setting boundaries, setting time limits on your phone, making sure that you're sticking to them, making sure you're conscious of when you're picking it up. Like, that's a big one. I think even if you just spend one day where you try and be conscious of when you're picking it up and like trying to articulate the reasons why you're picking it up, to know what's the root cause of that. You know, am I feeling stressed? Am I tired? Am I hungry? Am I looking for communication from someone? And then being able to then change that based on having articulated it and understanding it.
Look, you're so right, because one of those documentaries I watched on Instagram said that if you can't go 45 minutes to an hour watching a TV show and being engrossed in it without picking up your phone, you have an addiction. And while I was watching that bit happen, I was on my phone flicking through Instagram. So I knew they were 100% right, because I wasn't focusing on the show. I was like, yeah, okay.
Targeted at you.
Yeah. So I felt really bad then, and I thought, well, look, they've got me summed up. I must have an addiction. And look, I had last week off and I didn't post anything, but I did still read comments and stuff because I felt I still needed to be connected. Which was ridiculous, because the whole idea was to have a whole week where I didn't have any interaction, but I found I did. We've got Gareth McCauley, who said he turned off notifications around a year ago. He turned off his notifications with only text or phone calls notifying me. It's been beneficial. He's going into rehab tomorrow. No, I added that on the end. No, he's not going to rehab.
Sounds like he's already on the way, which is great.
Yeah, and Blixer Girl says, mine goes grayscale at 11 p.m. It's working mostly. So I think that's where you can't have calls and stuff, isn't it, from a certain amount of time?
Oh, I don't even know about that one. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
All right.
Sometimes I put mine on Do Not Disturb, you know, just to get it away.
Well, mine's on that from 11 p.m. till 7 a.m. so that I don't get any calls through the night. Karen says, great, it's so true. Awareness is so important. Mikey has just joined us. Blixer Girl says, and or ADHD, that's making me monitor. For the Love Bomb of Lamb joined us. God, we've got so many people coming in and out. And Black and White, Blixer Girl says, I'm not sure what that means.
Maybe like the lights changing on your phone. I think if we have a certain light on our phone, we have colours interacting in our
that blue light.
Yeah. So it can be really, really damaging to the brain, can't it, when you're trying to sleep? It stops you sleeping.
See these questions that have come in as well. Everyone watching will sit on the screen. So how do I do that on the screen? Does that come up? Yes. So Gareth says, I'm reading Atomic Habits currently. It's a book based on what Hollie is speaking about. Very useful, I think.
It's brilliant. It's such a good book. And that talks about the cue and the reward and the behaviour in between, and the process of, you know, creating a habit or trying to get rid of a habit. And it's so important, because I think we all live our lives like, you know, go, and we don't really realise the habits that we've formed until they become a problem.
But do you think that this sort of with social media and stuff, where we get the rewards straight away, do you think that's learnt from an early age? Because when we're children, I know as a child, if I did something right, I would get a reward for it, like a small bar of chocolate or some sweets, lollies. And I know that working in disability and counselling with people with a disability, if you're trying to change their behaviour, you usually have a reward system, and it might be a star chart or make up pieces of a jigsaw, and when you've got all the jigsaw together, you get a reward for it. So are we actually just trained in that way early?
Classical.
And this just reinforces it. Classical, yes, that's what
classical conditioning. It's classical conditioning. It's also domestication. So as a child, we're told to do things, and we're almost like, what's the word? Like, we're bribed in a way, aren't we? Like, if you do this, if you eat all of your tea, you can get a sweet at the end of it. And we just associate that system, that cue and reward system, to the thing that we then apply to in everything in our life. So as an adult, then we do something. So for instance, we'll do a really difficult task, and we will probably convince ourselves that we're due a reward after it to do it, which is like, it's bad, really, isn't it? Like, it's bad. It's bad that we're like that, isn't it? Because why do you need the reward at the end of it? Like,
well,
it's classical conditioning.
Yeah, look, I mean, classical conditioning, I mean, it's important. It's good for children. But I guess now, as we're talking, I'm realizing that a lot of that is coming back through social media and other things in life, that, you get your reward for what you do. And I guess Instagram, up until 2.5 years ago, I used Facebook, but nothing else. And then I started Instagram doing updates, and then, you start getting all these followers, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, I've got to keep checking in to check what's going on. And you don't need to check in, because last week I still had to check in, even though I had a week off.
I was the same, I went away last week, and I was like, I'm going to really try and break away from my phone, but I just couldn't do it. It's like you have the fear of missing out, where you think, if I don't, and I miss someone's message, that's potentially me missing somebody being able to work with me, and I don't want to lose that. And then at the end of it, when you realise, I haven't missed out on anything, it creates this thing inside of you that makes you think, I've let myself down there. And then that you've then internalised, and you've got to live with that, which is bad, isn't it?
Oh, it is. Yeah, look, it's definitely fear of missing out. I know, and also, like, I've found even putting my phone, because I always have my phone silent. I don't like ringing or beeps or anything. But I still always turn it over to check if I've had any phone calls, any messages, any social media. In the Silent Epidemic says, I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on other social media can have potential positive impacts on the mind or mental health in certain specific circumstances.
100%. I think so I used to log on and off my personal account, and I used to do that because I used to find that I had comparison theory a lot. So I was noticing that there was negative aspects of Instagram, and then I just happened to log into my account on Mental Health Awareness Day. So this was before I'd set up this psychology page. And I remember coming onto it, and I remember it being like a really positive place, and I remember seeing people who were talking about their feelings, and maybe that subconsciously did have an influence on me creating this page. Probably would if I look back at the time. And I realised on that day, and I did a post about it on my personal page, I realised that day that actually it can be really positive. And only recently have I just posted a post about this on my page, just to say, like, become aware of who you're following, and don't get sucked into this thing where Instagram's trying to make you compare your life to everyone else, and just follow accounts that are inspiring. Because as soon as you start doing that, you realise, actually it can be a really positive place, and I can pick up on some really good habits there, or even just like based on recommendations of books and stuff like that. Like, it can be great. I'll tell you an example for me. Only recently have I joined a new gym and stuff like that, and like created a new social network, which I'm so fulfilled by. And I would never have done that without social media. So the accounts that I'd started to follow and got in communication with, there was one account, one coach that I was like, you know, I like the looks of your lifestyle. Like I feel like that would really benefit me. Without that account and being able to communicate in that way, I would never have been able to have branched out and created this new social network. So it's about using it positively and being so conscious of how you're using it, rather than, you know, just being blasé about it and not really realizing how negative it can be.
Well, look, the last few days, or from last week, I started deleting some of the people I was following or unfollowing them, because I realized that my feed was getting filled up with all this stuff that I wasn't really interested in. But when I first started out, when people liked me, I followed them back. And so I started going through it. And then Instagram told me that I couldn't like anything because I was liking too much, even though I hadn't liked anything at that point. And also I couldn't unfollow any more people because I'd unfollowed too many. I think I'd unfollowed about 300 people. But now my feed is of stuff I want to read, you know, and it's nothing against them. They're doing their thing, but it's just not what I want to read.
Yeah. And we should all realize that, like, although we're all human beings, like, we're all looking for different things on different, you know, apps and stuff like that. And so your following isn't going to be suitable for someone else's. So, you know, you've got to cater it to yourself and your mind. Like, no one knows how your head works better than you know. So making sure that you're doing that. Like, I had my personal account since I was, like, say 18. So I was following all these, like I was following models and stuff like that, and it was damaging to me, because I was looking at people thinking, oh, you know, I wish I looked like that, or I wish my life was as good as that. And now that I'm older and I understand my own head more, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna unfollow them. And it was the same process with me as you. Instagram told me, to protect Instagram's rules or
protect
whatever.
the community. And I'm thinking, why do you need to protect the community from me? I just don't want to follow these people.
Yeah. So I unfollowed about 500 people, but it was the right thing. It's refreshing. It's so refreshing, and it's liberating. You feel like, okay, I'm doing something positive for myself here. I'm looking after myself. It's the right thing.
Well, look, we had another comment here from For the Love of Lamb. Another great book is Brain Reset by David Gillespie. Explains about the brain, dopamine rewards, and addictions, all based on research. Australian author. Thanks for that. I actually just wrote that down when you said that, because I wanted to. I think I want to get that one. In the Silent Epidemic says, she had a point here. For example, she runs. For example, I run How Do You Suicide Prevention Instagram page, and I find it actually does me incredible good. And sometimes one of the things I turn to when I'm most triggered, then she says, she corrected it right, I use suicide prevention page. And look, she does an amazing job on there. She also says, do you think social media is used for uplifting purposes, peer support purposes, and other such hopeful and positive reasons, it can be a positive effect on the brain? I think that's similar to what you said before in the Silent Epidemic. But yeah, you know, look, I know that when I did an interview with in the Silent Epidemic, and it wasn't a big podcast hit, and not hit, but it didn't get as many listeners as usual. And what I think it is that part of our brain is like, I don't want to go there. I don't want to have to think about that. I want to think about something different. And it was the same when I did one on child predators. It didn't rate very well, but people who did listen said, oh my God, this is great. This needs to be out. Mainstream media don't do stuff like this. And people need to be aware of all the pitfalls that happen with it. But then again, when I spoke to someone else on another podcast, they actually explained it about, we have this little bit in our brain where we just go, oh, I can't go there because I don't want to know what that's about.
Yeah. Ignorance is bliss sometimes with things, isn't it? And it's like, that's what people say, but it's not really, is it? Because, you know, these things that we don't really want to hear or we don't want to talk about are the things that we need to hear and we need to talk about.
Yeah.
And, you know, that suicide prevention is massive, and I don't think that there's enough really out there that people are listening to and looking at, because it does seem to be like a little bit of a taboo topic. But guaranteed, everybody has suffered the effects of suicide in some way.
And look, I think everybody in their lifetime, at one point or another, may not be at the point where they're really focused on suicide, but they would have that ideation of, I've had enough, this isn't working, this has gone wrong, you know. So we need to get it more in the mainstream so that people feel more comfortable about talking about it, so that younger people, older people, anyone, I mean, suicide in older people, like in their 70s, 80s, is becoming more prevalent because they feel like they're of no use, they've got no friends or family left, you know. So the more we talk about it, the more we can care for these people and, you know, stop those sort of things happening.
The power of talking and communication over like the right topics is huge, and that's why I think like it's so important to be so conscious of like the people who are in your circle and the friends that you've got around you, because if you're feeling a particular way about a topic that may be a little bit more taboo, but you've got good friends there who you can sit and talk to about it, like that's the biggest thing in life, like human connection and being able to discuss things in a really solid way it's the savior, it's medicine. Talking is medicine. It really is.
And I think that got shown pretty well during COVID, when people also couldn't connect with people in person. And then when COVID finished and we started to see, I don't know, people not knowing how to socially interact anymore because they've been in this bubble with like their family or their partner, and then they come out into the world and it's like, oh, but it's just a bit of banter. Well, it might be a bit of banter 2 years ago, but at the moment everybody's a bit on edge. We've just come out of lockdowns, and some of the things that people were saying were just things that I guess they wouldn't normally say. So we lost that I guess what's the word I'm looking for? We lost that acceptable sociability.
The ability to speak and communicate in the right way.
Without offending people just because you've had a shit time. Look, Gareth has also said social media is only a tool. It's the same as money, drugs, alcohol, gambling. How you use a tool is highlighting something within you. People escape from their life at the weekend. And look, I would say that social media is also a great way to escape from the life you're living at the moment. I know I've had a few personal things going on with people around me, and to jump on social media and read other things and look at silly things and that, it's a great way to divert my attention from what I'm dealing with at the moment. So
it suppresses things, doesn't it? And that's the problem. Like if you're suppressing something or you're distracting yourself from viewing something, you're gonna be made to view it at a certain time, and guaranteed it's gonna be exacerbated, isn't it, if you're not looking at it in the right way.
Now, In the Silent Epidemic said, thanks so much for answering so authentically and thoroughly. I also wanted to say to you then, so if we look at addictive behaviours and we take away drugs and alcohol, gambling, social media, so those four, what would be the next three that you would say would be addictive behaviours that I guess we think are socially acceptable?
You know, sex can be one. Sex is a big one. And porn, I'd say they kind of both they're intertwined in a way. They're the things that do create this like pleasurable thing in your brain, you know, where you're releasing all these chemicals and you're chasing that feeling then again. So that's a massive one. Exercise, like I guess I could say that I struggle with this sometimes, because I know that sometimes when I'm, you know, overly stressed, I'll use running in a way where I'm like, okay, I need to feel good, I need to feel better. So exercise is one, and shopping, or even food, like food. People ingesting food to feel this high from the food to then instantly crash, because, you know, I think people don't realize, like, behavioral addictions, although you're not ingesting something, it's more of like the engagement in the process that you're behaving in that is still creating, although it's not releasing neurotransmitters in your brain, it's still creating feel-good chemicals. And as soon as we have them feel-good chemicals in our brain, whether it's from a substance or a process, they're there, and you want them, and you want more, and you want more. And that's why we're constantly chasing for more. So that's why people who gamble, for instance, they'll start off by gambling a small amount of money, but to gain that excitement and that mass amount of dopamine in their brain, they need to gamble more money and more money and more money. And that's when the problem gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and like it's awful, isn't it? It's awful.
Well, look, not last year, the year before, I spoke to a guy from Ireland who had anorexia when he was 12 or 14. And he was saying that how it started was he was playing football, and he was exercising a lot and he was eating really well, but then he still felt bigger than all the other guys, like more chubby. So he started stopping eating, and before he knew it, he was anorexic. So I guess also doing some of these things like exercising to build muscle, because now there's also, I can't remember what it's called, but it's when guys become bigorexic, where
I
they
haven't
want
even
big
heard of that.
muscles. Yeah, so it's guys who start bodybuilding, and then this is why they sometimes go into, now I've forgotten what it is, steroids, because they feel like they can't get their muscles big enough. And, you know, so that's the extreme opposite of anorexia, really, isn't it?
Of
but
course, it's the same thing.
We're finding more with young men that now they want to have the good chest, they want to have the good arms, whereas it used to be more the women wanted to look perfect. Now men are going the same way.
Yeah, it's the society we live in today, isn't it? And I think it starts as something that's made to seem like it's really healthy. So, for instance, the chap that you just talked about, who was doing football and he was eating really well, at first that thing is viewed as, wow, brilliant, and you know, you get a reward from that because people around you will be like, wow, I'm so inspired by you, amazing that you eat so well, which then creates that drive within to continue, because it's like, you know, people are noticing this, it's great. Until it gets to the point where people are like, all right, that's enough now, you know, you need to not lose any more weight now, and then it turns. But then that behavior and that addiction to that like feeling of restricting is there within, and that's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah. And look, he said that on the reverse of that was when he'd gone through treatment for anorexia and started getting better, and he went back to football and he was eating normally, then he had to restrict how much he exercised because he had to put the weight on, and anytime they were running around the field he was losing weight again. So he said he'd gone from one extreme into another, and then out the other side into another extreme where he just couldn't exercise too much because otherwise he'd burn too many calories.
God, that must have been so hard for him, because it's like you have to really be, you have to have a lot of self-control to have a desire to do something and to not do it, you know. And I think that like with behavioral addictions, the problem with like getting better is abstinence is not always possible. So you can't always go cold turkey with some of them. Like, for instance, shopping, you can't just completely stop shopping because, you know, there's going to be a time in your life where you're going to need to shop, or you can't just completely stop eating because you need to eat to live. You can't just completely stop exercising because we're humans, we move, we have to move our bodies to live our lives. Sex, you can't just stop having sex forever because, you know, so it's about disconnecting the negative and the positive and trying to recreate and reinforce the positive to prevent the negative, but also being so conscious that the negative's there, because 9 times out of 10 when you've had a behavioural addiction, you cannot convince yourself I'm okay now. You've got to still have in your mind, I could go back to that.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
And
like,
there would be a lot of people. There would be
Yeah.
a lot of people, wouldn't there, that will get over an addiction and then go back to it, or
relapse,
substitute it for another addiction.
Yeah, yeah. And there's something else called maladaptive coping. I don't know whether have you heard of maladaptive coping.
Yeah.
So that's like, I think that's a creator of addictions in some way as well, you know, where whenever you go through something in your life, you're drawn to do something that's maladaptive. So like you can have a really difficult problem in work, or you can be suffering the loss of somebody, and you'll choose to relapse into this behavior that you know is bad for you. So that's like, it's like cognitive dissonance, isn't it? I know this is bad for me, and I know I'm relapsing here, but this is the thing that's going to make me feel better. And it's like a constant bounce back, bounce forward, bounce back. And
it's
so
almost like going back to get that reward, isn't it?
Yeah,
I know
exactly.
this is
Yeah, to
bad for me,
feel
but
good.
that's actually, I really want to feel good. And that's a
Yeah,
reward I need at the moment. So then you
yeah,
go back into that cycle of, well, it's just a reward. Well, it's
yeah,
not, because then it becomes a habit that which then becomes an addiction.
yeah. Which then changes the whole path of your life. Like you've got to navigate differently then, haven't you? And like
Yeah.
that's so hard. Everyone suffers with something in that way, I think. I really do. Even if you don't realise it, like everyone is looking for a reward in something.
Yeah, definitely. I guess every day there's something
Yeah,
that I mean, I know if I've had a busy week at work on a Friday night, I'll think, I'll get takeaway tonight. I know the
yeah.
takeaway is no good for me, but I think, oh, I'm shattered. I've had a long week. Yeah, no, look, I deserve this because I've worked really hard all week.
Exactly, yeah. You enable yourself, you convince yourself, don't you?
Yeah,
I
yeah. And it
deserve
doesn't take
this.
you long to enable yourself. It's only a couple of
No,
quick thoughts and you're like, yeah, I'm there.
yeah. And I think that's another reason why it's important to be around the right people, because sometimes we can be validated by other people, can't we? We can be convinced by ourselves, but if you're around the wrong people as well and they're convincing you, yeah, you deserve that, you should have a drink tonight, or you should go out
And
on a
especially
night out
if
and have a
they want to
blowout.
keep drinking,
Exactly, yeah. And it's just it's
because then
an
it's
enabling
reinforcing for
process.
them. Yeah.
Exactly, and then you're both enabling each other. You both succumb to this behavior or substance that you're using to gain a reward. And then how do you break away from that? Because guaranteed you're not going to break away from it together. You're going to have to go through the treacherous process on your
Yeah, sorry, the dog
own.
usually comes in, and now she's coming. Go over there. So Gareth said again, who do you follow? Who you follow is the same as in real life. Your friends, social circles, family members, info you take on, i.e., gossiping, drama, etc. Follow accounts or interact with people who reflect you. And the silent epidemic came back and said, from your comments, it's occurring to me that perhaps the social media has evolved. The way to have a social media healthy life is to choose and treat it more like you would personal friends and selections. Sorry, she's corrected it there. Quality over quantity. And like you've mentioned, being selective and careful about who you follow so that you're being uplifted instead of torn down. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Even like podcasts that you're listening to and things that like are kind of tapping into your subconscious mind that you don't realize that are going to influence how you live your life day to day. They are.
Are you able to read these comments too?
I am. I'm trying
Okay.
not to get nervous.
All right. So, End the Silent Epidemic says here as well. Get out of the way, Roxy. One of the reasons I believe this podcast and this gentleman, I think she's meaning me, should be respected so profoundly is because after interviewing me, he lost thousands of followers, but chose to continue posting and supporting me because he cared about the cost more than his father. But I think she means more than his following. Follower
Yeah,
count, yes. Yeah,
yeah,
because as we just said before, it's important to highlight these issues. And if people don't want to listen and they turn off, that's okay. I mean, a lot of them came back. They just didn't want to listen to that episode. But it's about putting these things in front of people so that they have the opportunity to see or to listen about these different topics, that whether
yeah,
they agree with them or not, it's good that they know about them, because we can't
yeah.
stop putting our head in the sand and going, oh, well, that doesn't exist, because everything does exist, and they're
Exactly. Yeah.
things that need to be brought forward.
It's spoken about. Yeah, the important things. Yeah, and that's exactly what it reiterates what I've just said. Making sure
Yeah.
that you're listening to the right people and the people who you can trust what they're saying. Where you go, okay, I'm going to gain some positive information there, or I'm going to gain some information there that, yeah, it might be hard, but I can trust and I can take it on and I can apply it to my life if I need to, and it'll help me rather
Look,
than
sorry, End the Silent Epidemic has also said, and she says, I don't mean to offend, and please feel free not to not comment, but do you have any thoughts on if religion can ever become an addiction? I know that in my life it has manifested, and in a way of someone I loved showed signs of addiction to religion, to the point where I was cut out of his life because I wasn't willing to follow the most fundamental version of his religion. And yes, definitely religion can be an addiction, because the more people believe, the more they get into it, the more they see it as the only way to go. And it might be a form of brainwashing the way it goes, as in cults. Yeah.
I think sometimes with that as well, it's about like belonging to a certain group and feeling connected. So it's that like desire to be connected in some way and to be accepted and understood. And so people, you know, they engross their time and themselves in these groups, and then that becomes their whole life then. And anyone who's outside of that maybe, you know, will not be priority. So yeah, religion is it. You wouldn't even think it, but it is one. Yeah, religion.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was just thinking, because I've interviewed quite a few people out of cults now. And, you know, with religion, you're supposed to be following God, and you follow your priest or bishop or vicar, whoever they are, and you support them by donating money, and you go back home and you think about what their sermons were for the week, and you think about what they've said to you and how you should act. So I guess it is a form of, you know, no, I was not thinking addiction, I was thinking brainwashing, because it is all that about getting you to follow.
But I think the addictive side of that could be, you know, a suppression of something that's going on in your life, that you're thinking, okay, well, what I'll do is I'll just distract myself with this religion, and I'll put everything into that, and then I'll live my life for that, rather than living my life in the way that maybe I should be, because, you know, I'm suppressing things there that I don't want to look at.
Yeah. And she's just added on to that. Of course, I'm not trying to say that religion in general is an addiction or is unhealthy in any way. Just it is an oppression of an addictive way, I guess, was my question. Yeah. And you're so right. Look, it can be like that. I mean, a lot of cults, that's what they do, isn't it? And you get loved bombed when you join a cult. You get undivided attention. And sometimes in cults, and this isn't all cults, this is only some, but sometimes people are sort of on the periphery of society and not really knowing if they fit in, and they find someone who treats them really well, gives them food, gives them lodging, and all of a sudden you're just in there, and before you know it, you have become part of that big machine.
Yeah, and the chances are that is from like childhood, and feeling like you've not had the correct attention and love from your parents or your caregivers, and then gaining attention from somebody else from this group, and being like, okay, like that's it now. That's why so many people are like, you could apply it to like a toxic relationship, for instance, and you can become addicted to that desire for somebody in a toxic relationship, because you want the attention of someone, because you've wanted it for so long, because you've been lacking in it for so long, and you become addicted to that thing. There's so many addictions that we don't even realize. Like, you can become addicted to your own stress hormones. We convince ourselves that, like, if you're under a lot of stress every day, we convince ourselves, our subconscious mind, that that's the thing that's safe, because it's the thing that we're used to. And anything else, so as soon as your parasympathetic nervous system's activated and you're calm, you think, oh no, this is a change, I'm under threat. And you want that stress again, because you're addicted to that feeling, and because you think that you associate that with normality. And it's like so toxic.
Well, I was just thinking then when you were talking, we say in psychology and counselling, the victim mentality, and no, nothing works for me, blah, 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 blah. Oh, I'm so bad, or, you know, and that is also like an addiction, because you get the attention from people going, oh, poor you, how can I help you? You know, and you actually live in that situation, and before you know it, that's all you do, because you always get attention when you're saying you feel sick, or you feel ill, or you've got no money. You know, people go, oh, how can I help you?
Yeah, you get addicted to that. Yeah, that attention from that. It's so sad, isn't it? And people don't realize it. Like, people don't realize that that's the thing that they're doing.
Yeah, look, and I don't think they realize it until it's highlighted to them.
Yeah.
And then they go, no, that's not me. That's not me. Well, I think it's just been so long that you've been in this mentality that it's become
normalized
part of you.
it.
And normalized.
Yeah.
God, why do you come up with the words that I can't think of?
I can read your mind. I've had a few people say that to me this week. Like, oh, how did you know that I was thinking that? And I'm like, I can read your mind. I can't.
And obviously you can't, no.
I can't, no.
Look, I think when you do study counselling and psychology, you do learn to pick up on things people are saying. I was speaking to someone the other week who was a client who rang me from the UK, and he's talking about all this different stuff in his life. And I go, oh, actually, I would say that you catastrophize everything that goes on in life. And he goes, what do you mean? And I go, well, everything you do, you always think it's not going to end at, like, say, position 1. It's going to be position 100, and it's going to be the worst thing that ever happened. You're building a house, and not you drop a piece of wood, the whole house collapses. Oh my God, that's exactly what I do.
Sabotage
I go,
it.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, self-sabotaging.
Yeah.
So
Massive catastrophizing,
is saying, I'm obviously going to watch the end. I just wanted to get this in case short before I could post it.
She said I'm so grateful and think this has been such an important and enlightening conversation. Thank you to both of you for your time and incredible insights tonight. I've enjoyed watching this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. No, that's brilliant. Look, and I think she said when she first came on, it was 4 a.m. in the morning in America. So for her to stay up for nearly an hour and watch that and take it all in at 4 a.m. is brilliant. And KG Counselling, you know KG, Karen.
Yeah, Karen.
She says such a great live.
Thank you so much, Karen.
Was it as funny as when we did one, Karen? We did one on the five stages of grief.
Yeah,
and
you watched
it. It was funnier than it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
But that's good, because nothing has to be boring, does it?
No way. And I think these topics, they can be taboo, can't they? And like, that's the thing that creates this like hush hush thing inside of everybody around it all. And it shouldn't be like that. We should all we're all humans. We all feel, we all suffer, we all experience pleasure. We should all be able to communicate with each other. It's so important. And being able to do it in a light-hearted way, like, there's no better way, I think. Like, I approach every situation. I'm never like, let's be professional and direct with this. I just think that gets you nowhere.
Look, I feel exactly like you, because I think when I started the podcasts, if I was to sit down and talk to people like you, a psychologist, yep. If I was doing the podcast and interviewing you as a psychologist, and we just sat there and went, okay, tell me about, I don't know, any topic. And you went, well, what I'd like to say, first of all, who's going to listen? No one's going to listen. Like this, It's like people say to me, the podcasts sound like I'm sitting there having a cup of coffee with someone and they're listening to the conversation. And that's how this has been. It's been really good, enjoyable, and you brought up some great things. Yeah, because I thought with what was it, addictive behaviours, we might have talked about things like having too much coffee, but you've brought everything into it, which was really good. Social media especially, because that we're both on social media. We're using it all the time, but we realise how bad it can be for us.
Yeah, I think it was such a relative topic for me to cover right now, because I just think it's bigger than ever, isn't it? It's huge.
Oh, definitely. Well, look, there's so many documentaries on TV. Like I said to you, I think I've watched 2 or 3 in the last month about Instagram and social and Facebook. And it's when I'm watching those things that I realise, wow, there are so many things I'm doing that I'm not even conscious I'm doing them when I'm on Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. And then also, the positive sides of it, and trying to find that equilibrium between the two, of being able to, maybe connect with people on social media, and then being able to physically, go to a class or go out for a meal with a group of people, and break away from that social media side of it, and connect physically as humans, as we're meant to.
Yeah. I must admit, if I'm going out for dinner with someone and we both start getting our phones out, we both go, nah, no phones, let's just chat, because it's an automatic response as well, isn't it? Oh, I better check my social media.
Yeah, and then you're not present, are you? And when you're not present, you're not only are you not aware of what someone else is saying to you, you're not aware of the things that you're thinking. Like, something called your metacognitive awareness. Like, if you're not present in a situation, your metacognitive awareness is shrunk, and you're not conscious of the way that you're thinking about the things that you're thinking. And so the people who you're around, they don't get the best of you. And why would you want that?
No.
Like, if you're with someone, you're with them, aren't you? Like, let them experience you properly. Be present.
Yeah.
So one thing, if I had to say it to anyone, I'd just be like, be conscious of how present you are in your life, because when you're present, you're alive, aren't you? Like, break away from your phone, live your life.
Yeah, and you can really tell, can't you, when someone's fully listening to you, fully there, understanding what you're saying, as to someone going, yeah. Holly, it's been amazing talking to you.
Oh, thank you, and you. Yeah, same to you. Lovely
It's so
to
good. Look, and the Silent Epidemic said as well, she's going to be following you. You've got a lifelong fan.
Oh, thank you.
So,
thank you.
Look, everybody who's watched, everybody who's asked questions or commented, thank you for being here. It was great to have Holly here from the UK, me from Australia, and follow Holly. Holly is at perception _ your _ power.
Yeah. Yes,
that's it. Yeah, so follow her and see all her great updates. She does brilliant updates, and that's how I connected with Holly, because I started seeing her updates. They were bright, they were informative, they were interesting, and that's what you want when you're looking at Instagram, so that you walk away going, oh, I actually learned something from that.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Brilliant, Holly. Thank you so much. We'll catch up again soon.
Have a good evening.
Yeah, you have a good day.
Thank you. Bye. Take care.
Bye. Bye-bye.